I grew up in the church. I cannot even remember when I accepted Christ. So when Charlie and I met and started dating, him being an unbeliever and me being a believer, I knew that wasn't right. But that didn't stop me from continuing on. I felt God speak to me about it. And I said, oh Lord, you bring me by a believer. And hey, I'll take a look, no problem. You just bring one by next week or two, okay? And, well, he didn't, and I married this unbeliever. I married in rebellion. It was sin, there's no doubt. I want to make a clear note, though, that Charlie didn't sin. He was an unbeliever, and he wasn't told not to marry a believer. We had 3 children and were married for 13 years before I was really convicted of that sin and confessed it and asked God to wash me clean. And then in the next breath, Lord, will you bless our marriage? I didn't know how to be a good wife. I didn't know how to be a good mom. I didn't know how to delight in our children, how to discipline them. I wasn't great at respecting my husband. I didn't know what to do. And God took me by the hand and led me and taught me. Charlie had applied for a job overseas. We had been moving every year and a half of our married life, pretty much. And I was tired of it. I was sick and tired of it. I was tired of making new friends, all that sort of thing. I like to be rooted. I like to be deeply rooted. I was really mad at Charlie. And I felt God speak to me and say, if you are mad about having to move, you talk with me. And so I did. I told him, I'm really mad. This is really hard, the life I was leading. And if I had to move again, he had better go before me. He had better be with me and go before me. And of course he did, because he promises he'll do that. I can tell you, I have a legacy of years and years of God going before me and preparing a place, a home, a community, a church in all these places we lived. Well, throughout the years, I prayed for Charlie's salvation. And I can remember God checking me on my motivation sometimes. I felt God saying to me, do you just want to have Charlie go to church with you and put his arm around you? And I thought, well, yeah, is there anything so wrong about that? I mean, yeah. And I felt strongly the Lord saying, well, yes, that's not an okay motivation to be praying for his salvation. And so I started praying, Lord, even if my husband, my dear husband, Charlie, would never put his arm around me in church, Lord, would you open his eyes? Would you reveal your kindness to him that he might call you Lord and Savior? During this time, Charlie wasn't antagonistic about my faith. He didn't go to church with us, but he would read Bible stories to the kids at night. He made sure the kids knew that when church came around, that they were going to church with me. But he had no comprehension of God, no understanding whatsoever. What was deepest in my heart to talk about, he couldn't comprehend. We were in bed one night, and Charlie said to me, he said, Nancy, what's the most important thing to you? I thought, uh-oh. I said, well, God. And he said, well, yeah, and because of that, I've started investigating a bit about God. And he said, I've been looking online. And I thought, oh Lord, of all places, did you let him look there? We talked a bit about the Lord, about God, he came to accept Christ that night. In the morning when we got up, told the children about how Charlie accepted Christ, and it was like, whoa. And I called up my friends and said, I slept with a new man last night. And it was such a celebration. I couldn't believe that God would meet my husband in a way that he could be met. See, talking you and me, I mean, that would be uncomfortable. He'd put up a wall, but he could look online. And our God met him that way. When Charlie became a believer, we didn't have an instant change overnight. It was years. God worked on us, and he continues to work on us. I mean, that was 20 years ago, and the Lord has brought us a long ways. I have learned and know that God not only forgives us, but he redeems us. There's a sweetness in Charlie and my marriage that isn't a result from my work or Charlie's work. It is a result of what God has done in us. When you see my dear husband in church, putting his arm around me, that is God's goodness, a gift